The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hello there. Obi-Wan Kenobi here, also known as James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan,
Jedi Master Plo Koon,
and many other characters in the world of Star Wars. You're listening to... Shh, don't tell. It's The Secrets of Star Wars. May the Force be with you.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. From movies to books, TV shows, and more, we're looking at the deeper themes and meanings found in the Star Wars universe. And be sure to follow The Secrets of Star Wars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite podcast app, or on the StarQuest YouTube channel. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X, where we are at SQPN, or on Instagram, where we are at StarQuest Network. And be sure to get your official Secrets of Star Wars gear at sqpn.com/merch. I'm your host, Jeff Haecker, and joining me tonight on the panel is Kathryn Laffrey. Hey, Kathryn.
Hey, Jeff.
All right, so today we are discussing Andor Season 2, Episode 8, Who Are You? And I'll give the summary first, as usual, and then we'll go into impressions and discussions. So, Captain Kaido opens the square on Ghorman as the Resistance goes to protest, but Rylance realizes it is a trap. He tries to stop people from going and runs into Syril and confronts him, but Syril continues on to the Imperial building, while the Empire prepares to start the mining operation. The media is reporting the Ghormans have instigated the entire thing. Kaido shuts down the square and the Ghormans are surrounded, and deploys his fresh recruits. Syril arrives and realizes he has been played and goes to see Dedra, who reveals the truth. The Ghormans stop chanting and start singing their peaceful anthem. Syril leaves the safety of the Imperial building and Dedra orders a sniper to shoot one of the Imperials, which causes a riot and the protesters are trapped. The Ghorman Massacre has finally begun. Syril sees Cassian, who is trying to shoot Dedra, and they fight, but Cassian does not even know who Syril is, asking him, "Who are you?" Syril is shot by Rylance, and Sam, who accidentally killed Cinta, manages to stop a KX droid unit from killing Cassian. Cassian leaves Ghorman with the droid while Woman stays behind with his girlfriend. Edie and Dedra grieve their loss while the media begins to report on those evil Ghormans. All right, so the big event we've been kind of building to for a long time has kind of happened finally in this episode, the Ghorman Massacre. So what were your impressions of this episode, Kathryn?
I love musicals. This is probably, I did like this episode because it mimicked Les Mis. And so I was like, okay, that's pretty neat. A lot of good points in there. We finally get Syril and Dedra in the right setting now because they know they're playing each other. Or she was playing him, I should say. And then, just seeing everything the way it came together was really nice. The one line that always sticks in my head, and I know there's got to be a couple good references for it, is when the older Ghorman says, "We'll be silent when we're dead." Every time I hear it, it just sticks out with, there's got to be something more to this, and I just can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, and I agree. I love this episode. Yeah, it is very much Les Mis. We kind of have been joking about that for a little bit, that the Ghorman is basically France, and either the Nazi Germany times or even further back in the Les Mis times, but not very they were definitely going for that kind of rebellion, that resistance kind of thing there. And yeah, this episode was I think it was absolutely incredible, and it might be one of the best episodes of Star Wars TV for me, not just of even this season or the series, but just even of all the shows they produce. Not my favorite, not my overall favorite, but definitely one of the best for me. We had great action. We had great. I mean, this Ghorman Massacre it's been talked about since Rebels season 3, which would have been back in like 2016 or 2015, something like that. Mm-hmm. So they've been building, they've had this kind of storyline in their back pocket for a long time that they can find, and they've been building up to it even since season 1. So kind of finally getting to see how it all plays out and what it means for our characters was really, I mean, it was sad, of course, definitely depressing for the Ghormans and really for the entire galaxy, because this is kind of the Empire finally showing its hand to the galaxy. Even though they're trying to spin it their own way, you will see how successful that is in the next episode or two. Overall great episode, and of course we lose Syril in this one right as he was about to turn, which just makes it kind of more tragic. Like, I feel like he was right there, ready to come to the light side, and then he saw Cassian, and just everything went out the window for him. So.
Yeah, just the way they had the camera movements in this really helped build up to that moment when Syril finally gets to confront Cassian. Because we had the times where they would like drift past each other, or they're in relatively the same place. So that constant, tension was building of, what's going to happen when they finally meet again face to face.
Right. And it's interesting because Cassian never really knew Syril. He captured him that one time in season 1 before he left Ferrix, but aside from that, didn't really know who Syril was, other than he was just one of the security people. But he knows who Dedra is, because his whole mission is to take out Dedra, and he knows who Dedra is because they kind of call her the I forget if they called her something like the oppressor of Ferrix, or like the architect of the Ferrix operation, or something along those lines. They've talked about her this season, so they know who she is. It's sent by Luthen, and Luthen really probably doesn't know who Syril is either. So it's just interesting that Cyril's been obsessed with Cassian for, for years now, and just that it was just completely one-sided. So we can get into the more discussion here. So I thought one line I'd call out early was the line, "Rebellions are built on hope," which of course comes back in a big way in Rogue One. And I think this is the first time we hear that line. If I could be mistaken, I can't remember if it came up earlier this season, but it was the hotel clerk who remembered Cassian from his previous visit, who didn't report him to the Imperials this time, but he thanks Cassian and tries. He doesn't know exactly what Cassian's doing, but he probably thinks he's there to help him. But he says rebellions are built on hope. So. Very little interaction there.
I felt like the clerk all along was in on the rebellion.
Yeah. Right. Because he was.
But it's interesting having the clerk say that line, because now it's like, if I watch Rogue One, I would want to see a look on Cassian's face of, oh, I've heard that before.
Yeah. Well, I think if I'm remembering, I watched Rogue One after the final set of episodes of Andor came out, and he first says it to Jyn Erso. I think when they go to Jeddah, he says rebellions are built on hope, but kind of sarcastically, because they're talking about how, or she's talking about kind of how like the rebellion's nothing and can't stand against the Empire. And he kind of sarcastically says rebellions are built on hope. And you can, having this story now, I kind of read into it that he's remembering all the hope that they had and how Ghorman just blew up and so many people were killed there. So at least for me, that's kind of how I read that in. And then of course Jyn brings it back in at the end of Rogue One when she's trying to rally everybody to go get the Death Star plans, or go to Scarif to get the plans, or she says that line. And then Cassian at that point is finally convinced, because he's kind of had that turn there as well. So I just thought that was a nice setup there for Cassian to kind of stop being so cynical and stop kind of so like, I mean, he up till now he was kind of attention divided, but now he's like I think more singly focused, knowing really what the Empire is doing, what they can do, and how he wants to try to stop them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because, in a way, the only reason I think he accepts this mission to go to Ghorman to kill Dedra is because it's personal. He wants to eliminate her just like they eliminated the Doctor. That's all for Bix. And I think it took him until he saw the trap to really start, kind of getting this all to gel in his head, that he's got to think beyond just himself and a few people around him.
Because, it's going back to what Luthen was saying, like, think like a leader and not just a soldier, and how before they went to Ghorman, he was trying to just, like, the General Draven was there trying to say, you can't carry out these kind of missions. Like, there's a bigger picture here, but he's still, like you said, he's kind of been obsessed with Dedra because of what she's done to his home and what she's done to Bix specifically, because she was, she wasn't the one running the torture device, but she said, she told Dr. Gorst to do it. So she's, I think it's kind of going back to how they call her she's the finger, and the Captain Kaido guy is the trigger. So, like, she still has to, even though she's not doing the violence, she's ordering the people to do these evil acts. So, and really just seeing how,
for the promotions.
Yeah, exactly. Just seeing how fascism, how this kind of thing is just chewing up the people that try to work for it. Like Syril, like I think he's really been kind of all in and trying to, support the Empire, but he also was like, he thought there was a peaceful way out of this. Which I guess we can go to his conversation with Tenza and Rylance. I think he sees Tenza first, and then tries to set up a, like, hey, let's just go, let's tell them everything's okay. Or maybe that was last week. They kind of run together.
It was last week.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all taking place in the same couple days. But yeah, so he's trying to find a peaceful resolution. But at this point, like we've been saying, this has been the Empire's mission to shut the Gore down so they can get the materials they need. So
yeah. Now, what's the old man's name again?
Rylance.
Yeah. When he confronts Syril, that's just like, yes. That, that's the moment you want for Syril, because it's like he's going to see the truth finally. And because Syril has always been about wanting justice, I think that appealed to him. This group appealed to him. And he just wanted justice too for, eventually getting Cassian, because of what happened to other members of his security team. It wasn't so much that Cassian was a rebel, he just wanted justice. So now he's learning the truth, and then he turns it on Dedra, which was awesome, because he's like, he's been here for justice, and now all of a sudden everything around him that he thinks he's working for is falling apart.
Yeah, because they weren't, like, he didn't know about the whole mining operation stuff. He was just trying to like he wanted to stop an uprising, so he was going in on behalf of the ISB to try to make sure there were no outside agitators. And little did he know that there were, because of course there was Luthen's still trying to get in there, and they did, in the last arc they did that heist mission. So he's been trying to do that, but yeah, he doesn't know the bigger plan, that they're, like, he's still in the, being played, like you said. And I do still think Dedra and he were trying to forge a relationship, but neither of them knew what a real healthy relationship looked like. So they were just kind of using each other and, trying to make the best they could. But Dedra.
Yeah, it's like, it's important to talk about that relationship in a Catholic context. Because I don't know if you've ever read John Paul II's Love and Responsibility.
I don't think I've read it, but I've read some, or have known a little bit of theology of the body. So
yeah, well, this is before that even. So
okay.
His Love and Responsibility really takes a deep dive into the relationship between men and women, and about the fact that a real relationship that's leading to marriage and building to marriage should never be about using. And so here you have two people really using each other. And so they're not seeing the actual person, they're just seeing an object for use. So it's like a sad, tragic thing, unfortunately, that happens too often today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even if they were like somewhere trying to work out, a relationship, and Dedra even was trying like, we'll be heroes back home. Like in last episode, she said, go pack your stuff to leave. And like, she's trying to get him to come to the Imperial building to be safe. So like, I think she's still hoping, like, for whatever affection she has for him, I don't think it's real love or real, she cares for him, I think, as best as she can. And like we've talked about, I think being raised in the Kinderblock and, within the Empire, within presumably an Imperial run, school and whatnot, like you have a very warped view of everything. So I think for her, it's like she's doing the best she can there. But of course, she's still going to ultimately give everything to the Empire and will initiate this big massacre, even though Syril's, out there and she doesn't know where he is. And yeah, I thought it was interesting that they start out because, like we said, they go to open up the square, which has been shut down, and there's been curfew and stuff like that. So the Gors haven't been able to go out and, protest and whatnot like they have been in the past few years in the show. But they open up the square to let them in, and of course the Ghormans start running and saying, "Oh, we can protest now." And the chant that they have is, I believe it's "We are the Ghor, the galaxy is watching," and they just keep repeating that over and over again, yelling as they run. And Rylance is just realizing it's a trap, and it's too late to stop anyone from, too late to stop his people, and even his daughter Tenza is out at the square, and and then it transitions into singing, not chanting, but singing kind of the peaceful song, which I have the lyrics that I think would be good to read. I'm not gonna sing it. Don't worry, listeners. But they go out from kind of the angry chant to kind of the peaceful kind of protests, because they're, I think they're not trying for optics purposes to do that, but it really works in their favor to do that for optics purposes and to really show that the Ghor are peaceful. But the lyrics are, "Raise your eyes to homeland skies, we are the Ghor. Breathe the air and know you're there, we are the Ghor. Valley, highland, let me spend my every day there. Call your kin to come and sing, we are the Ghor. Voices loud and standing proud, we are the Ghor. Valley, highland, let me spend every day there." And then, so that's pretty much the song that they just are singing. What did you think of that transition, or the chant to the song? Any thoughts on that?
Well, what was important is who started the song. You have one of the older members of the group who's willing to fight but knows better. And the other thing is he takes his cap off. So he's totally fully himself. He's not trying to hide. And he's, living out his upbringing. So it's like, this is who we are. This is really what we're about. We're not about picking a fight. And, it's more about sticking to the tradition and base of who we really are. And what was awesome was to see the effect that he had on the younger members that were there. And so they're like, okay. And then it's cute to see in the audience all the old ladies, really getting into the song and, remembering, and their hand on their heart. It's, really cool.
Yeah, and I believe it was, I think his name is Capso, but it was the guy he was kind of the firebrand in the first arc that's at the big Ghorman front meeting, is kind of protesting and giving Rylance a hard time. And then the second arc, he's the one that they stumble, or that kind of was getting in their way, that led to Cinta's being shot because they were struggling with the blaster. So it was interesting that he kind of had his own kind of redemption moment, which there's a lot of redemption in this episode kind of comes too late for a lot of people, but there are moments of redemption like that for him. He starts the song, and I think we see him get shot, and we don't see him again. We see him later. I think he's holding a friend or a brother or something, who had been shot in the fight. So, and yeah, we finally see, we know this has been a big setup coming, that the Empire was going to do something, and, it's been kind of a false flag operation that's been building. But yeah, as they're singing, they have their sniper target. At first you think it's going to be the Ghor that they're going to shoot, and he's kind of aiming at one, but then he turns to aim at the Imperial, because they want the Imperials to react and start shooting the Ghor, and so they shoot the Imperial to make everyone think that the Ghor did it. But of course it was the Imperials the whole time, and then that just kicks off the riot, and the Imperials start shooting, the Ghor who have some weapons start shooting, and you just see it's really just it's not completely one-sided, but by the end of it is, because the Empire is just going to be there in overwhelming force. But what did you think of that kind of big moment of finality before that kicked this whole thing off? And Dedra being the one to call, she's the one saying go ahead and take the shot. So
that was interesting, having it flip back on her to call the shot, because that kind of forced her into, I think, her final situation of, Empire or nothing kind of thing. Because I thought at the moment, she had an opportunity for change as well as anyone. Syril going Darth Vader on her didn't help. But so that was all interesting. And just the whole buildup of it, where you see, from the beginning of the episode, you see Cassian watching them rearranging the barricades. They're literally creating a funnel down to the monument. Then, they're building out around this whole bowl of a plaza area, which is just, bringing everyone in, herding them in, and then throwing the very green troopers out there just to, let it be, hey, one of them could get trigger happy, or we'll make one of them trigger happy and just set it off. The whole thing is playing out like they said it was going to play out. We're going to set them up to fail, and we're going to be the ones to ignite it.
Yeah, it was very reminiscent of, there's a lot of real world times this kind of thing has happened. Like, even, we're in the US, so thinking of like the Boston Massacre, which if you've read the history or seen, know anything on that, you have the Boston troops or the British troops, and someone yells fire and they react. And so there's and John Adams, one of the second president, was the lawyer who defended the Boston or the British troops, because, he was saying they reacted to their training. And so you kind of have that. So I just thought of that. And there's been in many other, nations, and false flag types of operations have been played out throughout history of this kind of thing. And yeah, you have, you even have them saying, like, if you won't follow these orders, you can go to the brig. Like, there's even like, if you don't serve our purpose within the Empire, like, even if you're a loyal Imperial, if you don't carry out every order, you're going to be, sent to the brig and, executed or sent to a Narkina 5 style prison for the rest of your life. So, yeah, there's a lot of there's really not any wiggle room in the Empire. If you either do what you're ordered, or you're chewed up and spat out by the machine. So, so yeah, there's not a lot of interplay here. It's just a lot of, this episode is very action heavy. So there's, a lot of scenes back and forth of shooting, and we get to see the KX droids, which K2SO is, it's his class of droid get deployed, and just completely takes out Tenza, like throws her across the square. And at first I thought, oh, okay, she's going to be okay. But then you see her head roll to the side and her eyes open. You're like, okay, she's not okay. So
yeah.
Yeah, we're just losing. I mean, all these Ghorman, and I mean, we knew this was coming, but it's still like, at least for me, like it really felt like these characters, even though we may not know them all super well, like they really felt like a real living, breathing people, because you have this language that was like, it's just, the world is so, I think, just really well developed here, that like when we lose them, you really feel it, even though you don't know them that well.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it did give me very much the same feel as that, big final standoff in Les Mis, where it's like, okay, I get you're trying to stand up for something, but you're not doing it the right way. Again, they had older leadership tell them this is not the way to do this, and it was going to be a slaughter, and it was. So it's just fascinating to see all that action happening, especially when Syril's walking through it all. And you see him kind of like the officer in Les Mis, just kind of like what's going on and trying to figure out where he's supposed to be. Just to have him eventually wander in on and see Cassian was, I feel like all that action built up well to that one moment.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's like we were saying, like Syril, like he's been on a redemption track really most of this season, really, with like meeting the Ghormans and kind of seeing there's another way to live outside of the Imperial bureaucracy, that you can have a different way of life. And like I said, there's been some theories that maybe he and Tenza did have a little bit of a relationship that was that he was, while he was living on Ghorman. I don't know if I believe it. I feel like he wouldn't really betray Dedra, and she'd probably find out if he did anyway. But
I don't think he's her type either.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, they were at least
his collar's too high.
Yeah, but they were at least friends, and and he's gotten to know these people. He got to know, like, he met Rylance in the first or second episode of the season, and kind of got to meet the Ghormans, and he's just seeing a lot of these people that he knows and maybe really might be friends with getting slaughtered by the Empire by this. And you have TIE fighters screaming overhead, which even kind of adds to the panic. So, and the whole time you have the
tension moment.
Yeah.
To add the TIE fighter, because just rewatching it again, I had forgotten about that, and then you hear the TIE fighter go over, and you're like, "Oh, that's right." You kind of get that feeling of there's a whole lot more going on around them, so that it's not just this one little spot that's being trapped, but the whole planet.
Yeah, and it was interesting to me in this whole series that they make TIE fighters kind of more dangerous than I feel like they were before, because in the movies, in the original movies, TIE fighters really didn't seem all that dangerous. I mean, they did take out a couple of rebels in the first movie, and then I mean, there was some back and forth in Return of the Jedi as well, but it seemed like they were just didn't really seem that terrifying compared to like the X-Wings and the types of ships the rebels had. But really, you think about it from, if you're on the ground and you see the TIE fighters go screaming by overhead like they do on Aldhani in the first season, it really does, like, that would really terrify you if you're not, if you've never flown in a ship before and you've never been in space combat before, like seeing that overhead would really be kind of terrifying. So, and yeah, like I said, you have the media, the Imperial media this whole time, like talking about how the Ghormans are instigating things, and they're, having unauthorized gatherings, and they're fighting against the Imperial, what the Empire's doing, and just kind of like, I can just imagine that the ISB, these are all like, ISB owned type of operations, or Imperial owned operations, where they're just being told what to say, and they have to say it. So,
No, especially when they said exactly word for word what we had just heard the ISB talking about. It was classic. Yeah. And then watching Syril's mom watch the broadcast. It was interesting too, because she's glued to it in the sense that she's worried about her son, and at the same time almost oddly proud looking that he's there. I don't know. It kind of had a weird kind of feel to it. Like, yeah, he's in something big, but she's also worried about him too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you can just imagine, I mean, not to speak too much on current events, but you can imagine just like in our world, there's a lot of stuff going on, and, people are glued to, they're getting fed news and all the time, and from, some sources more reliable than others. But, they don't have, at least they don't seem like they don't have like, Imperial Facebook with people posting their opinions there and starting arguments online. So
it would have been a little too real world if there were flyers being passed out. Head to the plaza.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, we kind of talked mostly about Syril and Dedra, but before, their relationship, it ends here. And then, of course, he doesn't make it out of the episode. But before we kind of get to him seeing Cassian, did you have any other thoughts or things you wanted to say about the Syril Dedra relationship?
No, it just, you knew it was coming. Seeing him just come unglued was fascinating, because I did not expect him to lose it like he did. And actually watching it again with the surround sound, they brought a lot of bass into it, much in the same way they add a lot of bass to the sound effects when Darth Vader's choking someone. So it really gave an interesting dark side feel to everything that was happening there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just the moment of betrayal where Syril sees that he realized he's been played this whole time, and he was never here just to meet with the resistance and try to, report to the ISB. He was there to do that, but this has been planned for years. Dedra even says they've been planning it for years, and that they need this mining, and that they need to mine, strip mine Ghorman, which if you've seen Rebels, you can kind of imagine what they do to Lothal and Rebels is what they're going to do to Ghorman here. Because, we see this one main city, but we've seen a lot of the Ghorman countryside that looks very lush and very green and very nice. Kind of a very, would probably be a nice place to live before the Empire gets there. But they're probably just going to strip mine it all, and for the calcite that they need for the energy project. So
yeah, what was the book with when Kana and Hera met? That New Dawn?
New Dawn.
Yeah, so they had a moon that was being mined until it collapsed. So they're basically doing the same thing here.
Yeah. Yeah, because and then if you've read, I know you've read the Thrawn books, and I have as well, but they talk about how they need, on Lothal, there's mines that have, I forget the name of the metal, dunium it might be, that they need, and there's a lot of backstory to Governor Price and Ryder and Zadi, how they were Price's family owned mines, and they were eventually sold and taken over by the Empire, and she eventually gets to lead, become the governor after kind of going to work for the Empire. So if you have a natural resource the Empire wants, your planet's not in for a fun time, because they need to.
Yeah.
They're trying to build
consume it and kill it.
Right. Yeah, because they're still building the first Death Star, and the second one is probably well on its way to being constructed at this point, because it took them 20-something years or 19-something years for the first one. So they probably started that at some point as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Syril, as he's kind of walking through the square, he sees Cassian, and just, you see that moment of recognition, and just all logic, everything just goes out of the way. He's just, it almost, to me, he's remembering back to how he was on Prox Morlana, where he was just obsessed with this. And even though that situation led to his current life, he still just blames Cassian for everything and just goes after him. But what did you think of that scene with of their kind of showdown and their fight?
Oh, that was pretty intense. It was interesting to see how he fought. And I was surprised at the way the way Syril fought. So it was interesting to see. And then just like you could see that it all comes down to, he has focused all of his grief over the last couple of years all on Cassian. It's all you. You ruined the perfect life I had by taking out fellow security guards years ago, and it's just all resurfaced right now. I think that, and he's also been taken back to that moment of terror when Cassian had captured him. So it just kind of builds it up. He's going to flip it.
Yeah. And I was kind of thinking too, like my headcanon is he probably took some self-defense lessons, because he wasn't really that experienced when we saw him in season 1. So, I'm just trying to headcanon like he's taken some classes, maybe with the ISB or something to get better, because he
learned from the gore.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, because he didn't really, like, we didn't really see him fight much in season 1. Like, he was captured and then, like, that was about it. But this, like, he's really just like he and Cass, like, he almost kills Cassian here, because they're kind of choking on each other, they're fighting, they're smashing things on each other's heads, they're throwing each other around.
Yeah.
And then you just see the devastation when Cassian says, "Who are you?" Like, he doesn't even know, like, in Cassian's mind, he doesn't even recognize him and doesn't know who he is. Yeah. He's just some random guy, when Syril's just been obsessed with him for years. So
yeah, because Cassian really only saw him that one time on Ferrix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I ever really had much to do with him after that. And to him, yeah, he's nothing. He's nobody. But to have that said, and watching the reaction on Syril's face was just, you could tell he was completely broken right then and there. And then to have him shot, I was like, no chance of redemption.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if he had kept going, like, if he had gotten to safety or something, like, if he hadn't seen Cassian, he might have been, there's a world in which he could have made his way to the rebellion after seeing what the Empire did. But he saw Cassian and just threw a wrench in everything. And yeah, R.I.P. to Syril. And just to jump to the end for a second, because there's a few more things to talk about too, but we see his mother just, and you, like, I've never really felt bad for her until that moment. And when she realizes, like, her son is probably dead in this massacre going on. And, for the first time, I do feel bad for her.
Yeah. It looked like she had been given a report already.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah. Yeah, she's with two of her. Like, at first I was like, is one of these people Uncle Harlow? But like, when I watched it back, I was like, okay, it looks like it's two ladies with her. So
yeah, maybe Harlow's wife. I don't know.
Yeah, like, you actually do feel bad for her, because as a parent, losing a child is one of the hardest things, one of the worst things you can go through. And she really doesn't have much else going for her. Like, she kind of has put everything into Syril.
Yeah.
And, like, her identity is kind of based around being overbearing to him and being his mom, even though they've kind of seemed like they had gotten in a better place the last few years in the show. But,
well, they set up that relationship, or at least Dedra set it up for them. Make sure he calls you, and, so she got what she wanted. He got what he wanted, as far away from her as possible, and the ability to just hang up. So, but yeah, very interesting mother-son relationship there.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, we can kind of probably blame her for him not really knowing what a real relationship looks like, because she's probably been just overbearing him his whole life and kind of beating him down his whole life. So
maybe that's why he went after Dedra the way he did, because he realized that you're just playing me and using me like my mother.
Yeah, that's true. That was very true. but Rylance is the one who saves Cassian. And we just see more of the Ghormans are finally kind of getting out of the square and running off. And as Cassian and Wilman, they find each other again and they're trying to get away, but then we see a KX droid coming for him, and then just we get to see Sam, who was the guy who killed Casinta in the last arc. He has managed to take over a truck and rams the droid and saves Cassian's life. And we all know what Cassian goes on to do. So I just was thinking back to I think on first watch I didn't realize it was him, but on second watch I did, and then I thought back to what Vel had told him of make it matter. You're going to think about this every day and make it matter. And he did by saving Cassian. So
I would have liked earlier on in the show when they were loading up all their guns to head to the plaza. I would have liked to have seen some hesitation with him handling a weapon. But there wasn't really anything significant there. So it's like, okay, I think there needed to be a little something there for him to at least, some expression of memory in handling the weapon again. Because we haven't seen him kill anyone since then, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been a nice touch if they had done that. But there's a lot going on already, so I can kind of see why they didn't. But I mean, if they ever do a novelization of the show, I could see them adding
his thoughts.
Yeah, seeing his thoughts of flashing back to Cinta. But yeah, we do get him kind of redeeming himself there.
It's funny because I don't see that as redemption, running over the droid. Yeah,
I guess I see it as he's redeeming himself by saving Cassian. By I don't know, maybe redemption's the wrong word. I guess maybe making it matter, making what happened to Cinta matter by saving Cassian, who we all know goes on to do important things. So
I mean, just the whole story of how Cassian gets K2, right? K2SO, is that it?
Yeah, because we see
for everything that had just happened before, with the depth that they had, with the whole build up to the massacre and all the character interactions, to have it done that way felt like all of a sudden they're throwing a comedy into the middle of a tragedy, like in the worst way possible. It was like, oh man, that felt like, oh yeah, wait, we forgot. We got to show how he gets the droid.
Yeah, I guess I didn't bump on that really. Because, they didn't really play it for comedy. There's later comedy stuff with K2 that we'll see in this season. But yeah, I didn't really bump on that. I guess it was maybe kind of thrown in a little bit, and maybe they could have done something a little different there. But, I don't know if he was just like, we've got to salvage something. Maybe this thing has some intelligence or memory that we can use. And that's why he went to grab it, went to take the droid. Because, this was the droid that becomes K2, and kind of becomes his kind of his best friend in the by the time of Rogue One. So, but and then Wilman decides to stay behind because he has his he's got a girlfriend on every planet, it seems like. So,
right? Oh my goodness, can he be more of a player in the middle of war?
Because he's kind of been embedded with the Ghormans, and his girlfriend Drina, we see her she's the one kind of operating the radio at the end, like saying, is anybody listening? Like, they're killing us. We're peaceful. We have no weapons. Like, obviously they had weapons, but something to that effect. I can't remember exactly what all she says, but she's kind of sending the broadcast out. But it's probably being blocked by everything. So, it's not going to get out there. The only official story that's going to get out is what the media is reporting. And then you have, Cassian, kind of like how in Rogue One, Jyn kind of becomes the messenger who carries the message of the Death Star's weakness to the rebellion. Cassian's kind of he's the witness. And as we'll see next episode, he's got a very big part to play in some big events. So, but yeah, Wilman stays behind, and at this point, we don't know if we'll see him again. So hopefully he's okay. If you've seen ahead, you know the answer, but we won't spoil ahead. So
I don't think they kill him off unless you can see it, right?
Right. Yeah. If there's no body, if you can't see the body, and even if you do see the body, somehow they can return.
Yes. Cut them in half, they can still come back.
Exactly. That's kind of all the major notes I had. I mean, just overall, again, it was an incredible episode, and I really like this arc. I think might be my favorite, although the next arc is also really good for me, good in my opinion too. So it's kind of hard to pick, but this one was really good. But any kind of final thoughts, or anything we didn't talk about for this episode?
There's some good subtle things with Dedra and the ISB. Well, first of all, she's reporting back to an empty room, where before, when all of this started, the ISB was a room full of people, and now they're weeding it down to just a few for whatever purposes they need, kind of thing. And then just to watch the way that he's so calmly leading her, directing her. If she starts getting excitable about something, he'll call out, you're not standing up straight, or that sounds like a little emotion in their voice, and just really kind of trying to manipulate the way she's even allowed to talk to him. So I think, it comes to fruition at the end when you see her again grabbing at her collar and feeling what Syril basically tried to show her. This is going to choke you out, and it's getting tighter and tighter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we've seen, in other Rebel or other like Star Wars things, you see if you go against the Empire, what happens to you. And for, some better outcomes like Agent Callus and Rebels, he becomes the spy against the Empire, and they're about to take him out, but he manages to escape in that season of Rebels. So, but yeah, if it's just you have to do all or nothing. Like there's no in between. There's no questioning orders or this order is unlawful, I'm not going to do it, kind of a thing. It's like you either comply or you're imprisoned or executed, depending how high you are up in the food chain. So yeah. Anything else we want to talk about on this one?
No, just the set design that they had been building over the previous episodes. You can kind of see how it all fit in so perfectly. The hotel room overlooking the square, just the design of everything, watching the building slowly going up in the background, the big dome to give you that feel of a Death Star kind of look. And then the opening music, having it sung, was really nice to have that little change in there. So, and then did they finish with the song?
I think so.
I remember.
I think kind of turned into more like a dirge, like a funeral, like dirge kind of a version of it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Just to wrap it up myself, just an incredible episode. And the next one is also really incredible. So I'm excited to talk about that one. But I think that'll do it for this episode of The Secrets of Star Wars. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons, including Joseph F., Ronald S., EC, Javier P., and Jude S. Their generous donations help us to create The Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows here at StarQuest. And you can join them at sqpn.com/give. And now we'd like to hear from you, our listeners. What did you think of this episode of Andor? You can let us know by sending us an email at starwars@sqpn.com, on our social media pages, or by leaving a comment on our channel on the StarQuest Discord server, which you can find at sqpn.com/discord. And until next time, thank you, Kathryn Laffrey, for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
Yeah, Jeff, it was a good conversation.
Thank you, yeah. And once again, I'm Jeff Haecker. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy, The Secrets of Middle-earth. Find it wherever you can find podcasts or at sqpn.com/Middle-earth.